SOP 256. Today we're going to talk about putting a sock on it, as well as podcast seasons. Do we need that? And the release of more podcast money.
It's the School of Podcasting's morning announcements. Here's Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson, thanking you so much for taking the time to come listen to me, with you, gab about all things podcasting, from planning to producing to promoting to monetizing. It's all here at the School of Podcasting.com. If you'd like to reach me, I would love to hear from you. You can email me, Dave at schoolofpodcasting.com. You can call in your comments just like Troy and Rich did today, courtesy of podcastvoicemail.com. That's 888-563-3228. And again, our website is schoolofpodcasting.com. He said, typing up one other quick thing I wanted to add here is today's show is really based around a lot of feedback from the audience. Want to mention one thing right up front. PodPress. Back in the day, children, gather around, let Grandpa podcast. PodPress was a great plug-in, and then the dude that wrote it quit, basically, and it died on the vine, and it's basically had a few people that have tried to pick it up and make it work as WordPress has gone on. And to make a long story short, they came up with an updated version of PodPress. And it's, from my one experience with it, horrible. It adds all sorts of these new categories, and the instructions of how to upgrade basically say, yeah, go in and resave your permalinks and do this and do that, and it just, nothing worked. And we ended up, the solution was to go back to an older version of PodPress. So again, my plugin of choice for podcasting is PowerPress, which the great thing is PowerPress was birthed, if that's even a word, was created because PodPress died. And so you can actually easily migrate from one to the other. The one thing I think that you can't do with PowerPress that you can with PodPress is put more than one media per episode, which in theory, by RSS standards, you shouldn't do anyway. But you could create multiple feeds for that, and I think that's how you would get around that. So my advice to you is, if you are starting a podcast, please don't listen to old episodes and use PodPress. If you are using PodPress, I'd really think about trying to migrate over. It's horrible, it's bad, and just about every year something happens with that. And I mean, on one hand, I love it because I end up making money from it, because people go, hey, my site broke. Yeah, I know. What are you using? PodPress. So that would be my advice to you. Run. Do not walk away from PodPress. Also wanted to thank, I want to get his name here, Brad West from payapuniversity.blogspot.com. Let me know. We were talking last week about the website is podcastaboutpodcasting.com. And he let me know that there's an Australian guy named Dan Lyons. He's got a podcast. So I added it to the list, which is how to make a podcast like a pro. I'll have a link to that. Well, actually, if you just go to podcastaboutpodcasting.com, it's right there in the list with the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 podcasts. Also wanted to remind you, as we're kind of doing news here, May 17th, that is this Tuesday, I believe. Is that what it is? Is that what the 17th is? It's this Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Free podcasting webinar. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/webinars, and that will help you out with getting your questions answered. So let's start off. I'll tell you what, here's what we're going to do. Here's the thing of the show today. We're going to talk about podcasts. Well, first we're going to talk about putting a sock on it. Then we're going to talk about podcast seasons, and then I'll tell you about my book at the end that is now available. So here, we're going to start off with Troy Price from CompletelyComics.com. Troy, take it away.
Hi, Dave. This is Troy Price with the Completely Comics podcast over at CompletelyComics.com. On a recent episode, you talked about a $99 microphone attachment that really just filtered, all your ambient noise in the room. And the thing I remember that it was $99. I was searched on Lifehacker, and a few months ago created something very similar myself for free. It described, again on Lifehacker, that you take a half-gallon milk jug, cut out the bottom, and then line the inside of the jug with felt. That blocks your room noise. Then you take the top of a small coffee can, the plastic part, cut out the middle, and put that into a non-matching sock that you'll find in the dryer almost every time you do a load. Sew the sock, together at the end, and put that inside the top of the cut open bottom of your milk jug. And then just insert the microphone through the top of the milk jug, and you have a free alternative to, that $99 option. And it'll do about the same thing. And I got to tell you, it doesn't look, professional. But in our home studio, when my co-host for the Completely Comics podcast comes over, we make fun of having to talk into the sock. And that sock, provides a pop filter for the microphone, and it's just something funny at the show. You can listen to the audio quality over at, CompletelyComics.com. Let us know what you think. Thanks so much.
Troy, thank you. I wish there was a picture of this. I'm kind of trying to figure out how the sock, where does the mic go? Is it in a stand? We need a picture because it paints 1,000 words. As for your quality, your mic sounds okay. Unfortunately, there are two systems that I do not like. One is called Blog Talk Radio. The other one is called TalkShoe, and you are using TalkShoe. And I believe that is the reason that you have more than average noise in the background. And I don't think it has anything to do with your room. I think it has to do with the fact that your podcast, thanks to TalkShoe, is being encoded probably at 32 kilobits per second or 64. 64 maybe, but it definitely sounds 32. And that's basically less than AM quality. So it's kind of like buying a Corvette to then drive down a dirt road. You can't really go that fast on a dirt road, so what's the point of having a Corvette? So I would look into using a host such as Libsyn.com or Blueberry.com. I actually just launched another podcast, which I'll be talking about in about 3 weeks, and I decided to try Blueberry's hosting, and it's actually pretty cool. You do everything right inside your WordPress. I don't have to log into another system to upload things. It all happens right from WordPress. It's pretty cool, and I'll be talking about that a little later once I get some stats going and things like that. So, Troy, thanks again for your milk crate, put a sock on it thing. If you have a picture of that, I would love to see that. I would add it to the show notes, which, again, you can find at shownotes.schoolofpodcasting.com. Next up, from audiogumshoe.com and richpalmer.com, it is Rich Palmer.
Hey, Dave. Rich Palmer. richpalmer.com, audiogumshoe.com. Hey, something I've been thinking about, and this is pertaining to podcasting primarily, could be for musicians, but I've been noticing that some people do seasons for their podcasts. Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and I'm noticing that's also kind of perpetuating itself with musicians who also podcast about their music. And I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are about this whole season thing. To me, it's somewhat the antithesis to podcasting. It borders and echoes and nods to traditional Hollywood-type production, I guess. Join us for Season 1, join us for Season 2, season finale. I don't know. Podcasting to me has always been somewhat fluid, always evolving, always available, always. Just to me, it seems kind of strange to produce in a season. And I know some podcasters do. What are your thoughts? What do you think? I guess it all bases itself on what works for them, but to me it's odd. And I can honestly say that there have been some podcasts where I have listened to a season and then it's gone away, and truthfully I've forgotten about it. And if I don't see it in my feed for some time, I sometimes unsubscribe because I may not realize that they're on hiatus for a reason, that they're coming back. So seasons, to me, as a listener, I tend to lose interest if they've not been around for a while. What are your thoughts? This is Rich, richpalmer.com. See you later, my friend.
Rich, thanks again. I, my friend, am with you. This is another thing where it drives me nuts. We talked about this in the last show. When radio guys come in and say, I know radio, so I know podcasting. Podcasting is not radio. Radio is not podcasting. And so when I hear people say, well, this season we're going to be talking about this, I'm like, season? Why? And the one thing I could understand, if you're doing a podcast about a TV show, I could kind of see that, maybe, but I don't get it. Now, I do understand this concept, and that is the fact that from time to time, your passion, which is what drives your podcast, right? That's I always tell people, if you're passionate about a subject, start a podcast about it. But there are times when life gets in your way, throws you curveballs, and the passion or just the time it just isn't there. And I can see saying to your audience, hey, I'm going to take a month off. So in some cases, I've heard people put best of, or they just, they keep they'll bring out old episodes. Like, I think I have 20 episodes in my feed, so I could, go back and find the ones that's not in the feed. It's on the website, but, save people from digging through. I could do that and repost that. I might want to put a little disclaimer at the beginning. This is a repost, things like that. But there are times when your podcast, the passion is dwindling. So what you could do is take a couple weeks off. And I would just announce it, say, hey, it's vacation time. We'll be back in this time. And that avoids burnout. That avoids, it gives you time to go out and maybe you're saying you're not going to release any episodes, but you're going to actually record 3 or 4 and have them in the can so that you can put those out and then maybe move at a slower pace. Maybe do a podcast every 2 weeks, things like that. So I understand the concept of seasons on TV. I don't get it for podcasting, but there is no law that says you have to put out a podcast every week. Whatever your schedule is, try to stick to it, especially the first year you're doing it. So maybe write down the first, 20 episodes that you want to do. Just titles. You don't have to get too crazy. Just ideas, things like that. This show I try to do every week. You will see this year there are a couple times where I've skipped a couple episodes, and I've basically said I didn't have anything to say that week. So rather than put out a bad show, I didn't do that. So, Rich, I'm with you. I don't understand episodes. If you are episodes, I don't understand seasons. If you're doing that, I would love to hear why. Like I said, aside from just taking a break, and that's always fun, just to let your audience know that I don't think there's a rule against taking a break, especially if you're thinking of stopping the podcast. Instead of pod fading, why not take a hiatus and come back in 6 weeks? Just let your audience know, hey, I'm going to come back in, what is this, May 15th? If I was taking a hiatus, I might say, hey, I'm going to come back July 1st. If you have any questions, continue to email me. I'm still here. I'm just taking a hiatus. And you don't have to explain that grandma died and, and just say, I'm taking a hiatus. I will be back. Still love the show. And just take a hiatus if you need to. All right. This is one of the things on this show that, obviously I have the School of Podcasting. I try not to make this an obnoxious plug of the School of Podcasting. I talk about the tutorials at the end of the show. Today I'm going to try not to make this a giant commercial for my book/course, which is, because obviously the School of Podcasting helps people podcast, and there are things in the School of Podcasting regarding making money from your podcast. What I've done is I've did a lot of research on how people are making money at podcasts, and I've put those techniques, I've written about them, I've written about the amount of money they're making. I've opened up my wallet and said, here's how much I made, and I give you the techniques. I talk about which ones work the best, and, put that into a book. Now, the book is part of a website. If you go to morepodcastmoney.com, you will be able to download the book, and as life goes forward, it's a one-time fee, where the School of Podcasting is a monthly fee. This is a one-time fee. You go over, you sign up, you get the book, and then as life goes forward and I find more tips and tools and tricks, you will get those via a secured RSS feed out at the website. So what are you going to find? Well, things like creating your own sponsor. If you're like, well, we haven't any sponsors approach us, you know what? You can make your own. How to manage advertising on your website. How to create a media kit. What is CPA and CPM and what's the difference? The secrets to getting free stuff. And who doesn't want free stuff? Resources for finding sponsors. How to make it easy to buy from you if you want to sell things. WordPress plugins are going to help you build community, because the more community you have, the more opportunity to monetize that audience. Plugins to help you sell products. The one thing about this book, the book assumes you have a podcast. So if you're looking for a how-to kind of book, that would be theschoolofpodcasting.com. It is not how to press the record button. It assumes you're using WordPress. So if you're using Joomla or TypePad or something like that, some of this will work, but obviously, WordPress plugins is a part of this, and you can find that over at morepodcastmoney.com, and that is going to do it. So it's now available. And if you're a member of the School of Podcasting, there's a link to it inside the School of Podcasting, so it's actually part of that curriculum. But obviously, and this is why I'm doing this, some people are like, well, I've already got a podcast. I don't need to sign up at the School of Podcasting, because part of that, obviously, is how to plan and promote and produce. And you're like, I've already got that down. So if you just want the book and the course on monetizing your podcast, it's a one-time fee. Go over to morepodcastmoney.com, and that is going to do it. Now, if you're like, Dave, I can't make money on my podcast yet because I don't have one, then go to the other site, schoolofpodcasting.com. That's where we have the tutorials. We have the free, don't forget, this Tuesday, the free webinar. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/webinars with an S. And until next week, thank you so much for listening. If you do want to contact me, Dave at schoolofpodcasting.com. Call in your voicemail, 888-563-3228. And we will see you again next week. Until then, enjoy the summer, and class is dismissed.